Hello, and welcome to the Cass Health Podcast, the show where we hope to connect our community with healthcare information that's relatable, understandable, and useful to your life, and where you get to know better the neighbors providing your care here. I'm your host, Carter Anderson, and in today's episode, we'll be getting to know our newest primary care provider, nurse practitioner, Megan Frederiksen. Before we get started, two quick disclaimers. First, the comments in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of Cass Health. Second, the information in this podcast is not intended to be construed as personal medical advice. Always consult your primary care provider with your questions and concerns regarding your health. Welcome, Megan. Thanks for taking some time to chat with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Megan, you're a very familiar face here at Cass Health, and many people in the community know you from your years here as a nurse. Tell us about your career here at Cass Health as a nurse, kind of like the different avenues that you've been down in your time here.
Well, I started back in November of 2011. I started in OB. I was there for 3 years where I did OB and then house supervisor and moved to the ER, I think in 2015. That was my home for the longest time, I think until it was COVID, 2021. I still worked there and slowly transitioned towards, I think, a year after COVID, so maybe the end of 2021 to managing cardiac rehab.
Okay, and then you did that up until
present, till I went to school.
Gotcha.
Or graduated from school, I should say.
Gotcha. And when did you graduate from school?
Would have been August of this year.
Okay, August of 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So you've been here since, do you say 2011?
Mm-hmm.
So during your 13 or 14, I guess it would be 14 now, right? During those 14 years in nursing, when was it that you decided you wanted to go back to school? Was there a specific moment or like a specific patient that you knew your goal was to become a nurse practitioner? Was there like a specific moment during any point that you're like, man, I want to become a nurse practitioner?
No, I had always wanted to do medicine, so I started off at Luther with pre-med for my bio degree, and decided after I did a kind of like a clinical follow of a friend who was a practitioner there that I didn't want to do, at that time, the MD route to be a doctor. I didn't like all the after hours, like family lifestyle. He constantly busy, constantly being bothered by phone calls, and that kind of steered me towards the nursing path. And my husband's mom was a nurse and had been a nurse for years. So that's when I decided to do, after I graduated from Luther, went into the nursing route. From that time when I went into nursing, I knew I always wanted to be a nurse practitioner just because that would put me into a better role of being able to have a 100% say, taking care of my patients and not just being strictly at the bedside and following people's orders. They'd be my orders. So
Right. Very cool. You kind of get to have that individuality of getting to help them choose their plan of care, but also hopefully not having as many of those after hours, all of those things that come with being an MD. So Can you tell us a little bit about your education and training as you kind of prepared for this new role as a nurse practitioner?
We'll just start with my nursing education.
Okay.
So I got my bachelor's at Nebraska Methodist in Omaha, and then I got my master's from Clarkson College, which was a 3-year program that I did.
Awesome. That kind of gets you ramped up to where you need to be a
Yes,
MP.
and then my umpteen years of nursing education bedside nursing go on top of
and
that.
a few years of in the field experience,
Yeah.
right, with all that stuff. Very cool. You're an Atlantic native, and you've been at Cass Health for 14 years. What does it mean to you to be able to stay here in Atlantic and grow your career here with us at Cass Health?
I mean, it's important to me. I obviously grew up here. I know a lot of the community. And then as working as a nurse, I've gotten to know many of the community members inside the hospital and outside of the hospital. And then knowing the community through my kids and school and sports, it's just a way. I mean, small towns are kind of big families. So it's just, you're just taking care of another family member is how I feel living in a small community, and being able to stay here and work here is I'm taking care of family members. So
Very cool. What types of patients will you care for here at Cass Health as a nurse practitioner?
So I'm a family nurse practitioner, so I can take care of all ages for primary care purposes and preventative services.
Very cool. Do you have any special interests or health topics that you find really interesting? It is always cool to kind of talk to an NP or the new providers that we get to hear, okay, what do you really like to nerd out about? Because I feel like every position kind of has a niche that they really enjoy.
Well, I think medicine in general, it needs to be looked at as like a whole. There's a lot of things that tie in health, or like you had said, lifestyle type medicine, where it's not just throwing a medication or one thing's going to be a quick fix for a lot of things. People run against health conditions or problems they want to address or fix. A lot of times, it's still quality of sleep, the type of food, your activity level, even mental and spiritual health. They all tie together, and a lot of times you have to look at everything as a whole to be able to necessarily treat one thing. I'm not saying that you always have to treat it as a whole, but our bodies and life and medicine, everything is tied together somehow.
Kind of that lifestyle medicine approach, kind of how it all ties together and how those different things have impacts on the thing that might be causing the problem that you're there to see the provider for in the first place.
Yeah. Right.
Awesome.
And then pediatrics is a huge one of mine. I have always been the nurse to offer to take care of kids. It's my first go-to working in the ER. They're all different, just like adults, but kids are different in their own way. So it's always fun to personalities and how they work and their minds work. And they aren't afraid to tell you what they want to say. They just say it.
Right. They say the darndest things, but they also I'm sure that's a fun puzzle also to kind of try to figure out what they...
Yeah, because they can't always tell you.
Right. Very interesting. That's cool. Kind of a different puzzle to try to unlock there. Will you only be seeing patients here in Atlantic? You won't be going to any of the satellites or anything, will you?
As of right now, it'll just be in Atlantic.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's kind of all of our informational stuff. Now we get to do some fun stuff. We have 10 fun questions lined up for you. Are you ready? We'll go kind of through them rapid fire. We already know the answer to the first one. Where are you from?
Atlantic.
Atlantic, of course. Do you have a favorite sports team?
I am a Chiefs fan, and I don't really watch a lot of college football. I'll watch whoever, but I am a Chiefs fan.
There you go. It's been a good couple years to be a Chiefs fan, right?
Yes, it has.
They're all lined up for another run here. We'll see what they can do.
Yes.
If you're cooking dinner to impress, what are you making?
Oh, filet mignon with sautéed mushrooms, twice baked potatoes, and a side salad.
That's a good spread right there. That sounds like good stuff.
Yep. Driving
alone in the car, what are you jamming out to?
These are going to be opposites. I like today's country radio on Pandora, and then I'm a Nickelback fan, so they're opposites. I know. Doesn't make any sense, but
I was going to say a wide range. There you go. That's awesome. Favorite holiday?
Christmas, mainly because my kids.
Right. I was going to say that's a very magical time when you have kiddos at home, right? Just to see the joy of Christmas in their eyes and stuff. I'm sure that's awesome. Very cool. You have an identical twin who also works here at Cass Health.
She actually is not my identical twin. She's a fraternal.
Oh.
We just look identical.
That's even more intriguing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that means that they're two separate eggs, right? That they weren't one and separated. They were both totally separate. Okay.
Yep.
Very cool. What's your favorite story about being mistaken for one another? Or do you have a story about when you purposely deceived, she showed up and took a test for you or something like that?
Oh, no, we were too scared of my mom to do that in school. We would have got caught. No, we never tried to deceive or take tests or switch into each other's classrooms or anything. I don't have one particular. I mean, we get confused all the time. I think the most recent one was Ashley came up to me and she's like, oh my God, I just remembered you, or I just found out you were a twin. And she's a twin too. So she had to ask somebody that she thought she was seeing one person multiple different places. No, twins. It happens all the time. And our cardiac rehab patients run into us out in public. Our patients that we've taken care of in the ER. I used to work days. She worked nights. And so I did have a family member that met me in the hallway one day and said, are you here 24/7? I said, no. Why? I said, I go home. I work day shift. Well, I just see you everywhere. You're up on the floor. You're downstairs. And I'm like, oh, I have a twin.
You're like, that Megan, she's everywhere. No, that's my sister Michelle, too.
So
there's two of us.
Yeah. So it happens all the time.
That's hilarious. Very funny. There's too many instances to pick your favorite. There you go. What's better, the book or the movie?
I'd have to say the book. They leave too much stuff out of what should be in a movie from the book. So the book.
Right. The book always just gives you more, and then I feel like you get to use your imagination a little bit, too. With the book, you get to pick exactly what you want it to be like. So very cool. Do you have any hobbies?
I have a few. I started into sourdough bread, which I think everybody did kind of over the last couple years. That's a hobby of mine. I do photography on the side as a hobbyist, and then just fitness.
What's your favorite thing you've made with sourdough?
Ooh. Probably the artisan loaves, just the different designs, and I'm a nerd. The higher it rises and the crispier the crust, I don't know.
All the different factors you can kind of do with it.
How each loaf gets better with the more you practice and the more you do. So.
Right, I was going to say, I'm sure the first one
I always get excited, and I'm like, ooh, this one has the most rise. And my husband's like, okay, it looks like bread.
They'll look the same to him. You're like, you don't appreciate it, man. It's good stuff. That's funny. Favorite physical activity? You said you enjoy fitness and stuff like that. Do you have a favorite way to get active?
Running. I like to run. It's a good stress relief. You're just in your own world, in your own head. So,
Have you done any like half marathons or marathons, anything like that?
Yeah, we just did, my sister and I and her husband just did the Des Moines half marathon this past year.
Cool. Do you have one that you're kind of training for, ramping up toward upcoming, anything like that?
Part of the Des Moines half marathon is the I-29 series. So people would run it, start down in Kansas City. So on Saturday, they'll run the half or a whole. And then on Sunday, they come up to Des Moines. So next year, we're going to go down to Kansas City, I think.
Run the other half, or will you do both halves?
Oh, I'm not sure I could do both. One's good enough for me in a weekend.
I was going to say, that's almost
I'm usually
worse,
pretty
right?
sore.
Two
Yeah.
back-to-back, like one half one day and then one half the next day. Ooh.
Yeah, I can't imagine the people that run the full back-to-back, but
I'm like, that's crazy.
they're a little more hardcore than I am. I just do it for fun.
13.1 is still quite a few miles, so that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Next, or dream, travel destination?
Somewhere in the Virgin Islands.
Cool.
I'm not going there, but that's my dream.
Your dream, there you go. What's your favorite place that you have traveled to or you visited?
I would say we have family out in Oregon, out near Portland. I love the seaside of it. Just green, the humidity, the sights. So I'd have to say Oregon.
The lushness of it all. Oregon's a pretty cool place. So
Yeah.
thank you for taking some time to chat with us today. It was great to get to know you, and I'm sure a lot of people know you already, but now they get to know a little more, and we'll see you in the clinic soon, okay?
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.